Right now, we know that women around the world are fighting for justice, for safer streets for themselves, and for anyone who may be in danger. This is all because of the great insecurity that women face, simply because they are women. You think this is exaggerated? Well, you better sit down, because you're about to hear one of the most heartbreaking and unfortunate stories that can happen to such a young woman. Samantha Lee Josephson was raised in Robbinsville, New Jersey. From a young age, Samantha demonstrated a strong commitment to her studies, led her to major in political science when she reached college. During her senior year at the University of South Carolina, Samantha had her sights set on graduating in 2019 and pursuing a specialization in international law at Drexel University Law School. She had already secured a full scholarship to Drexel and a partial scholarship to Rutgers University, reflecting her academic excellence and dedication to her future career. Samantha's academic pursuits were complemented by her active involvement in campus life. A proud member of the Alpha Gamma Delta sorority, she embraced opportunities to broaden her horizons. She studied abroad in Barcelona and visited Madrid and Paris, enriching her culture and educational experiences during her time at the University of South Carolina. Known for her beauty and radiant smile, Samantha's presence left a lasting impression on those who knew her. Her aspirations, coupled with her charm and determination, made her a beloved figure among her peers and a promising future lawyer in the field of international law. On top of all this, she had a very close relationship with her boyfriend, Greg. The pair were constantly texting and calling. They had plans for a future together. Even if Samantha went to law school, Greg planned to move with her to support her. Everything seemed to be going well until Friday, March 29th, 2019, when Samantha did not return to her apartment. On the night of the 28th, Samantha had planned to go out with her roommate and some friends in Columbia, South Carolina. Her boyfriend Greg couldn't join her because he was in his hometown, but he encouraged her to go and have fun without him. Samantha was feeling sad after learning about a family member's illness, so going out with friends seemed like an ideal way to distract herself and lift her spirits. The group met and visited several bars before settling on a place known as the Bird Dog Bar in the Five Points area, a popular hangout for college students. Although Samantha was having fun with her friends, she continued to text Greg, begging him to make the 2-hour drive to visit her in Columbia because she needed emotional support. They already had plans to see each other the following weekend, so Greg decided to stay where he was, but stayed in constant contact with her. Around 2 a.m., Samantha decided to walk back to her apartment alone and called an Uber, a common practice among her and her friends. This time, fate would lead her to a fatal encounter. While Samantha waited for her Uber, she had one last phone call with Greg at 2:04 a.m., telling him she was on her way home. A few minutes after she requested the ride, a car pulled up to the curb where Samantha and other bar patrons were waiting for their rides. Security cameras caught Samantha approaching the car, only to realize that the driver was there for someone else. She then returned to her spot on the curb. Samantha was wearing an orange shirt and black pants. A short time later, a black Chevrolet Impala pulled up in front of her. Samantha said goodbye to Greg, assuming this was her ride, opened the door, exchanged a few words with the driver, and got into the back seat. Once in the car, she quickly drove off. Shortly thereafter, the Uber that Samantha had requested arrived at the designated location, but unable to find his passenger, the driver canceled the request and left. From the moment on, no one but the 21-year-old political science major and the man driving the Impala knew she had gotten into the wrong car. Surveillance footage would later show that the black Chevrolet Impala had circled the area several times before targeting Samantha. Anyone who spent time in Five Points knows that the college students congregated on the streets after the bars closed to wait for their rides, and the car's circling of the area suggested that the driver knew exactly what he was doing that night. Greg was tracking her through the Find My Friends app on his phone to make sure she got home safely that night. As he watched Samantha's movement on the map, he noticed that she was walking in the opposite direction from her apartment. Although he didn't think much of it at first, thinking she might have gone to a friend's house, Greg texted her to see if she was okay. Unfortunately, he never heard back. He then tried calling her, but she never answered the phone. Greg continued to text her several more times until he noticed that the messages were marked as delivered but unread, indicating that Samantha never read any of his messages. Her phone's location information stopped sharing, which surprised Greg because it had never happened before. Greg thought that Samantha might have lost her phone in the Uber, but decided to call her friends and roommate to see if they knew her whereabouts and if she had made it home. Unfortunately, no one knew anything about her or had seen her. Greg hoped that Samantha would show up in the morning and try to get some sleep. The next morning, however, Samantha was still missing. Her roommates, worried about her whereabouts, reported her missing. Greg also made the 2-hour drive to Columbia to help in the search. A few hours after she was reported missing, the body of a young woman, later confirmed to be Samantha Josephson, was found by a group of turkey hunters in a wooded area in New Zion, about 65 miles from Five Points. Less than 24 hours after Samantha was last seen on surveillance video getting into a black car, the hunters, shocked by the gruesome discovery, immediately called 911 and local sheriff deputies were dispatched to the scene. An autopsy revealed that Samantha had been the victim of a brutal attack. Her body had over 120 stab wounds, with injuries to her face, head, neck, hands, torso, legs, and feet. It was also found that her nails had been cut to pieces as she tried to defend herself from a sharp instrument, probably a knife. It appeared that she had been stabbed with a double-edged blade and then dragged into the woods. The autopsy also revealed the extent of Samantha's blood loss. Compared to the human body, which normally contains at least 4 liters of blood, her body only had 20 milliliters of blood left. Police quickly reviewed surveillance video from the bar the night before and determined that Samantha had got into a black Chevrolet Impala, believing it was her Uber. Investigators believe that the driver of the Impala likely activated the child's safety locks to trap her inside, since the doors can only be opened from the outside with the child locks engaged. At that point, Samantha would not have been able to get out. Descriptions of the car were quickly released to the public in hopes of finding the perpetrator before he struck again. Fortunately, it wasn't long before the black Chevrolet Impala was spotted by officers on routine patrol at 3 a.m. on March 30th, driving through the same area where Samantha was abducted. When the officers stopped the car, the driver jumped out and ran, but was caught and arrested after a short chase. Authorities identified the suspect in custody as 24-year-old Nathaniel Rowland from New Zion. Upon inspecting the car, they found a car seat in the back surrounded by bloodstains, prompting them to call for backup when they realized they were looking at a potential crime scene. Homicide detectives found large amounts of blood on the passenger seat and in the trunk, as well as a bloody handprint on one of the rear windows. They found Samantha's cell phone still on the floorboards. Later, they found out that he had tried to sell it at a pawn shop the same day, but he didn't like the $125 they offered, so he decided to leave it in the car. In addition, detectives found the car's child locks engaged, confirming the suspicion that Rowland had used this method to trap Samantha in his car. The vehicle also contained various cleaning products, including bleached window cleaner and antibacterial wipes. However, Rowland did not clean the car thoroughly, as there was still a lot of blood in the car during his interrogation. Despite the evidence against him, Rowland continued to deny any knowledge of Samantha Josephson's abduction and murder. He insisted on his innocence even after a physical examination following his arrest revealed traces of Samantha's DNA under his fingernails. Although it was puzzling that no DNA from Rowland was found on Samantha, these findings made sense when detectives reconstructed the horrific details of Samantha's final moments. The car's active child locks led to the conclusion that Rowland had activated this feature as soon as Samantha entered the car, leaving her defenseless and trapped as he repeatedly stabbed her with a double-edged knife. Samantha, surprised by the veracity of the attack, desperately tried to block the blows, which explains the multiple stab wounds on her hands and the condition of her broken nails. The excessive force used against her made it impossible for Samantha to scratch her attacker, which would have left skin cells under her nails. After committing this horrific act, Rowland drove to a rural road in New Zion, a place known only to locals, and dumped Samantha's body in a nearby wooded area. Rowland then returned home and spent the rest of the day posting on social media as if nothing had happened, while living just minutes away from where her remains were found. A look into Rowland's background revealed that he was a devout churchgoer and had attended South Carolina State University in 2017, though there are no records of him graduating. It's unclear what he was working on at the time of the murder, but he had a felony arrest in October 2018 for obtaining a signature or property under false pretenses. In another incident, a woman was kidnapped by two men, one of whom was Rowland, who assaulted her and forced her to drive to an ATM to withdraw money, then took her home to steal more items, including a PlayStation 4. Rowland was never convicted of robbing the woman, although he did sell some of her stolen items, including the PlayStation. When detectives obtained a search warrant for the apartment of Rowland's girlfriend, Maria Howard, in New Zion, they went through the trash cans behind the apartment and found a sock and a handkerchief believed to belong to Rowland, both heavily stained with Samantha's blood. They also found a blood-stained white sheet, a roll of duct tape, bleach wipes with blood on them, and a double-edged knife that appeared to have blood on it. Tests later confirmed that the blood on the knife, sheets, car, and bleach wipes matched Samantha's. With the evidence against him mounting rapidly, Rowland was initially charged with possession of a weapon during a violent crime, kidnapping, and the murder of Samantha Josephson. The trial would be stressful for the family, as Rowland pleaded not guilty and maintained his innocence despite the mountain of evidence against him. When the trial began in the summer of 2021, Rowland's defense team argued that their client was innocent, relying heavily on the fact that his DNA was not found on his alleged victim. Prosecutors, on the other hand, countered the claims of innocence with the undeniable amount of evidence collected in the case. Among the evidence presented by the prosecution were surveillance footage of his car picking up Samantha in 5 Points, the pints of blood found in his car, his bloody handprint on the rear window of the vehicle, and accusations that he attempted to use Samantha's bank card at an ATM after disposing of her body. In addition, cell phone trackers placed Rowland's and Samantha's devices in the same location at the time of the murder. Rowland lived near where Samantha's remains were found, and a handwriting expert compared Rowland's handwriting to a list found in his home. The list included items such as duct tape, gloves, and gasoline, indicating that everything was planned. The prosecution called 31 witnesses to testify, including someone who saw Rowland cleaning a gun, the pawn shop owner to whom he tried to sell Samantha's cell phone, and his ex-girlfriend, who claimed that her daughter had blood on her shoe after being in Rowland's car. Rowland called no witnesses, and none of his family testified on his behalf, but he maintained his innocence and pleaded with the judge. It took the jury only an hour to return a guilty verdict, and Nathaniel Rowland was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. After Samantha's murder, her parents, Seymour and Marcy Josephson, took it upon themselves to ensure that no one else would suffer the same fate as their beloved daughter. To achieve this goal, they created the What's My Name Foundation, which encourages people who use ride-sharing services to ask the driver to identify them by name before getting into the vehicle. They also promoted a safety protocol called SAMI, which stands for Stop, Ask, Match. They reported that after Samantha's murder, the rideshare industry implemented measures to protect drivers and passengers, such as issuing a personalized 4-digit code that users can use to confirm they are getting in the right car. This is how the story ends. While we cannot erase the pain and loss that her family and friends have endured, we can honor her memory by making a conscious effort to prioritize safety in our daily lives. If you were moved by the topic of this video and want to know more, please like and subscribe so you don't miss any more. We'll see you next time.